Leech is the first perk deck to come to Payday 2 in almost 4 years, and boy, is it worth the wait. Leech is absolutely busted on harder difficulties, turning Death Sentence into an infinitely more manageable challenge for just about every style of play. It joins Stoic by being one of 2 perks that are stronger the tougher the opposition. In fact, it may even be the first perk to truly challenge Stoic for the crown of best in the game. Honestly, it's probably too strong as things stand, but it's also one of those decks which has enough complexity to scare some players off. So let's start this video by explaining exactly how it works and how you want to adapt your play around it. But first, a quick word on today's video sponsor. G-Round, or Game Round, is a gaming platform which features currently unreleased games in the latter stages of development. Every week you can play 2 games from the constantly updated roster for free. I, for example, have been sinking my teeth into Netherguild, a charming turn-based roguelite RPG. I've genuinely enjoyed my time with what feels like a complete product, entirely free of charge. Game Round also encourages you to leave feedback on what you play via the G-Points currency system, which can then be spent on physical items from the store. So not only are you playing and testing highly polished games for free, you're being rewarded for doing so. If that sounds good to you, head down to my link in the description to download G-Round. This section of the video will serve as a complete tutorial for how the deck works once it's fully maximized. First, know that it's in the throwable category of deck, meaning you'll have to give up that slot for the Leech Ampule to get the most out of it. Outside of the throwable, Leech is purely a health gain deck, granting 184 extra base health at the start of a heist. This is identical to Kingpin, which is the first of many parallels that can be drawn between the 2 decks. But as you already know, health is not enough to make a deck strong. A survival mechanic is always key for Death Sentence, and the Leech Ampule offers one of the strongest in the entire game. With a simple click of your 3 button, which from here on in I'll refer to as leeching, you'll instantly sacrifice your entire armor pool and heal for up to 40%. Additionally, the health you do have will be split into 10% segments. When at full health, that means 10 portions total. These operate in an entirely unique way for Payday 2. Now, receiving an instance of damage will take away 1 segment, no matter how much damage that would have actually dealt to the player. This means that a Death Sentence sniper will effectively do the same damage to you as a normal difficulty beat cop. As an aside, there is still a short grace window for incoming damage, so your 10 bars of health will not be torn up instantly by a turret or minigun dozer. This already sounds good enough for most hardcore DSOD players. Going from getting 2 to 3 shot to 10 shot is a pretty big deal, but this is just the start for Leech. You see, it's also possible for us to heal and gain invulnerability throughout the 10-second duration of the Ampule. For every 2 enemies we kill, we'll refill a segment and gain a second worth of damage immunity, meaning being active and aggressive with this deck is rewarded. Additionally, you physically can't go down whilst the Ampule is active. Instead, your movement speed will simply be decreased by 80%, while still being able to interact with everything in-game. So you can easily bring yourself back to life through the self-heal mechanic, or by simply using a first aid kit and replenishing your 10 instances of damage. And I still haven't mentioned that for every bar you lose, you'll heal your teammates by 10%, which is a cool support mechanic, but basically makes teams of Leech players unkillable. So, as you can tell, it's a pretty bloated deck. You're going to be damn difficult to take down whilst the Ampule is active, but what about during the off times? Surely it's got a suitably long cooldown. Well, not really. Its base cooldown is 30 seconds, but starts as soon as you use it, and any kills you pick up whilst it's on cooldown will reduce the duration by a second, meaning it's very feasible that you'll have 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off consistently. But we're not done yet. What if by some miracle you do happen to get taken down? Well, this Ampule also doubles as an instant revive, bringing you back to life for 10 seconds to rescue a doom situation. Oh, and if you happen to use a medic bag or pull off a teammate revive during that period, your own revive will become permanent. This does now increase the cooldown of your next usage, which was changed to stop you chaining invulnerability, but even so, it's pretty insane for clutching heists. As you can probably tell, the Leech deck is entirely overpowered, but only really on harder difficulties, so it may not be the easiest to pick up and learn. I'm sure anyone can get some solid use out of it, it's simply that strong, but there are more nuances to this deck than meet the eye, as well as one enemy type in particular I recommend you play around very carefully. The first question you need to ask yourself when using Leech though is when shall I pop my ampule, and if you have any experience with Kingpin, you should already have a good idea. In fact, it's not too far-fetched to assume that Overkill have added Leech as a free and accessible alternative to Kingpin, the two function so similarly, although Leech is unquestionably more powerful. For me, whenever I see my armor go down and I'm not directly in cover, I will start leeching, shielding me from whatever just struck for at least 5 more instances of damage, so I can easily get to cover to take out the perpetrator. Unlike Kingpin, you do need to think about how many cops could potentially damage you quickly over range, as you're not almost immortal. But on the flip side, it is a better deck up against particularly high damage units such as the Sniper or Green Bulldozer. Occasionally, I will also pop the effect just to make use of the 40% heal between assault waves, or when I know I can heal even further by killing without putting myself in harm's way. One mistake that's easy to make early on is to just be too slow on the draw with it and accidentally press it after you've gone down. This will often lead to you wasting the charge and putting it on a higher cooldown whilst going down anyway 10 seconds later. Fortunately, you have enough health to survive 255 damage swats comfortably, meaning you should always have the time to react and save yourself once you get used to it. I also recommend being as aggressive as you can once it's popped. Yes, you can still easily die if you overplay, but so long as you're mixing in enough kills, you should be able to keep yourself topped up and work toward another charge sooner. Not to mention, if you're playing online, this aggressive playstyle will also aid your teammates by healing them. Of course, you should also be objective focused. Whilst you don't get the full effect of Die Hard when leeching, you can still tank more damage than a regular heister and have the effective immortality if all else fails. Don't tunnel vision objectives though. This deck is at its best when you're chaining together kills and keeping the ampule off cooldown, so still defer to your Sicario or Stoic players most of the time. The deck is also not without a few chinks in its armour. The most notable is the blind spot in your defences, which occurs every time the effect runs out. Your armour recharges as if it was broken, meaning there will be a short window where your health is directly susceptible after leeching. Always find cover before this. A second tiny weakness comes in the form of the Cloaker. They can still down you during the effect of the deck, meaning you can be left completely defenseless after being revived. Also, if a Cloaker does down you, you won't be able to activate Leech until you're revived normally, so keep them at bay whenever possible. One thing I do want to reinforce is that this deck is overpowered, but only really for Death Wish, Death Sentence and high crime sprees. On lower difficulties, surviving 10 hits is about par for the course, so you'll be there more for the passive healing and revive mechanics. I consider high meta to be what performs best on Death Sentence, but I do think Overkill should be savvy about nerfing this perk if they do so, purely due to how it's disrupting the DS meta. I think the immortality is the step that takes things too far, but that's only really exacerbated due to the power of uppers and first aid kits, so possibly changing how and what you can interact with whilst leeching would be the perfect fix. Because I do think, although it may trivialise Death Sentence for some of the most hardcore players, it is still a really fun and fresh concept deck that more people should get the chance to play around with before it's neutered. And hell, if it encourages a few more players to give Death Sentence a go, why not? From a build perspective, this is one of the first decks with distinct synergy skills. I'm going to give you 3 of my favourite Leech setups so far, but there are also a few core skills that Leech works really well with, and one that you'll simply have to miss out on. As a health deck, Partners in Crime is a given to increase your health even further and be able to tank up 2 extra heavy swat shots whilst not leeching. Inspire is also a given on many builds, but here in particular, having the ability to confirm your self-revive at a distance is really powerful. Doctor's bags can also be used to maintain that revive and should be considered, but I've found first aid kits are where the real power lies, enabling you to tank up to 20 shots when used whilst leeching, and saving you when leaving the effect without any health remaining, making you that bit more unkillable. There is another feature that's easy to overlook with Leech, and that is that when you use it, it counts as breaking your armor, meaning skills like Second Wind or Dire Need can be procced on command to make your leeching duration even more effective. I've also seen people argue for Swan Song here, which is a skill I tend to avoid, but will also extend that immortality for a few extra seconds. One thing that is missing from all my Leech builds is Berserker. The constant healing makes it impossible to use consistently, and when paired with Frenzy to keep your health down, you'll only get 3 extra shots from leeching. It's annoying when dealing big damage quickly is important for Leech, but we'll have to find another way around this. That said, let's take a look at my recommended Leech builds. First, we have the most meta slave styled setup I could think of. This build combines the almighty no brain no aim Dragon's Breath Grim 12 gauge with the equally powerful Akimbo CR805B SMGs for a deadly high damage, high utility combo. The Grim is so ammo efficient we can use a less conservative primary to tear through dozers and large groups of cops instantly, which is exactly the goal when using Leech. Here I actually run medic bags, as it's a little easier to maintain your health bar when literally everything is on fire and dozers are not an issue, but they also allow me to play even more aggressively and go for death runs when I know I can simply revive myself. To compensate for the lack of on-demand healing, I'm packing Hostage Taker here, which can be useful with Leech, but definitely isn't necessary when we have a 40% heal on deck anyway. To make up for the lack of Berserker, I actually aced out Overkill, which make my Akimbos even deadlier. Bullseye is always nice and is omnipresent in all but my Stoic builds, whilst Low Blow and crits should be pretty much taken for granted when using incendiary damage. We're decked out for 26 detection risk, which is purely because I've enjoyed running the heavy ballistic vest with Leech. It allows you to take 2 shots from light swats on death sentence, which is situationally incredibly useful if you have the concealment in the build to make up for it. This is by far the most pick up and play setup I'll show you today. Conceptually, I was just trying to fit as many busted things into a single build, and it turns out that's a fairly powerful way to go. Enjoy at the cost of the guilt you'll feel when using the Grims. Build number 2 is not much more aim intensive. This was the build I had in mind the second I saw that you could become death immune for 10 seconds. It's essentially an evolution of the Scarface Kingpin build, packing the little friend and Commando 101 rocket launcher to aggressively clear rooms with a limited concern for your own livelihood. Danger close with the Commando is not even an issue when you're leeching, and you'll frequently find yourself healing for 30 to 40% from a single rocket when it's active. Of course, by picking up that many kills, the cooldown between each use of the ampule will also be massively reduced. You might be getting a decent idea of this build's playstyle from the gameplay. Obviously watch out for teammates, but go wild otherwise. This is one of the highest kill per minute builds on the market. We're specifically using ammo bags with Bulletstorm to make the Commando more effective here, and remember, don't be shy in using these. You're better running out and enjoying the minute of Bulletstorm than being caught short without rockets. It is notable that by running ammo as your primary equipment, you'll need Jack of all trades aced with first aid kits to maintain decent survivability. As you'll only get 7 of them, expect to run out, especially if you're embracing this playstyle. The little friend offers another option against groups, as well as being your best bet against dozers, especially when paired with unseen strike crits. Also in line with the hyper aggression of this build, we're rocking Swan Song to get more out of the Commando even when going down, and to ensure that all objectives can be brute forced if need be. This is definitely an acquired taste playstyle that doesn't make you quite as immortal as I expected, but is still worth giving a go, especially if you don't feel like aiming much today. But if you do want to aim, I think the Sniper class really is the best way to go with the Leech Perk deck. First of all, full credit to KevKilled for the skeleton of this build. His video on Leech showed me the light when it comes to the 250 damage category of Sniper. You see, without Berserker, we need a little more base damage to confirm those one-shot kills on regular swats. But once we're in that sweet spot with the R700 here, expect massive graze shots that activate multiple procs of Leech and keep the deck off cooldown, whilst offering the safety of range and bullet penetration you'll always get from a Sniper. I believe from fairly extensive testing, this is the best overall approach to running Leech, with the R700 or any other 250 sniper, and a high concealment secondary such as the AK Gen 21. I run it with the 2-piece here, as I was a little short on overall concealment, and it's the first aid kit variant, which is probably the stronger of the two. I actually carry Inspire here for my online heist, as well as acing out Graze as with all sniper builds. Crit is pretty much standard again, but if you throw in high value target, you can even one-shot 1800 health specials without needing crit RNG. There's nothing really overly complex about this setup overall. Remember, keeping a high kill per minute stat is important if you're trying to aggressively maintain the uptime of a Leech, which thanks to the power of Graze should not be an issue. One play I like to make is to pop my Leech effect behind cover before using the R700's wallbang capability to activate a second worth of immunity before I go out and abuse the freedom of movement Leech offers. This is a truly outstanding build, and until either something is changed with the perk or Overkill adds something else that's incredibly powerful to the game, I'm happy to consider it the best out there, at least for Death Sentence. As I've hopefully made abundantly clear, Leech is almost certainly too powerful, but also complex and interesting enough to offer a ton of fun in learning how to use it. I definitely recommend you give it a go, either following the framework of one of these builds or within your own creation. I'd love it if you told me how you're running the deck in the comments down below as well. In the future, I want to test out full teams running Leech because I'm pretty sure that's where things get really crazy and start to break down. Anyway, that's it for this one. Take care. I'll be back with more Holiday Payday very soon. As ever, thank you very much to my Mean Infamy patrons and above. If you want to join that infamous club to see yourself in the credits or get early exclusive access to my videos, including the story videos, check out my Patreon link below. Remember, the Discord is open to all if you crave some more Payday discussion. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you all very soon for the next one.